Hi, this is Dan from Bible Prophecy and Truth. Today I'm going to talk about the 7 seals, which is another one of my favorite prophetic pictures that God painted for us. God kind of made a mosaic for us where He gave us all these pictures and painted them all for us. He did this purposely so we could understand when the time was right. He made it so we could only understand once the world had reached a certain point in the timeline. And when you put all of the pictures together, they fit together in this amazing, awesome mosaic that God gave us. And so understanding the 7 seals goes right along with prophetic understanding of last days and of the images that God gave us from Daniel 7, Daniel 2, Revelation 13, Revelation 17, and the 7th trumpet. When you put them all together, everything fits like a hand in a glove. God is absolutely amazing. So let's look at the seals in Revelation chapter 6. The first 4 seals are different than the last 3. Just like the 7 trumpets, the last 3 trumpets are the 3 woes. They're separated from the first 4 and have a completely different theme. Same with the seals. The first 4 seals are really different than the last 3 seals. And the first 4 seals are popularly known as the Four Horsemen of Revelation. And an interesting thing I've found is that these 4 horsemen depicted in Revelation also appear to be the 4 spirits that are in the world, shown in Zechariah. Revelation 6:1 through 8 and Zechariah 6:1 through 8 both give us a picture of colored horses with 4 horsemen and 4 chariots and horses. Revelation shows us what they do and things they carry, while Zechariah shows us what they are and where they go, specifically that they are spirits in different parts of the world. And when you put them together, it gives us an amazing picture. You'll see what I'm talking about when I'm done here. So like Daniel and Revelation, both talk about the same beasts of prophecy. Revelation 6 and Zechariah 6 both deal with the same prophecy. There are 4 spirits which are in the world, and they've been in the world for a very long time. Now the 7 seals in Revelation are broken up, where Revelation 8:1 actually finishes the 7 seals. And there's a lot of visions that John records in between the 6th and 7th seals, but in this video we're going to focus on the first part of the prophecy of the seals with just the 4 horsemen and Zechariah 6. The important thing to remember, and I'm going to talk about all of these as we go along, is that there's a white horse, a red horse, a black horse, and a green horse. Now, in the King James Version, we see that the 4th horse is translated as a pale horse. But I want to point out that it is strange how the pale horse in Revelation is translated to English as pale, when the original Greek word used is chloros, which means greenish or pale green. And that same word, that same exact Greek, is used in 3 other places in Mark 6, Revelation 8, and Revelation 9. And each of those other places, it's correctly translated as green. And when we go through the meaning and the prophecy of this horse, you're gonna see that it really is a green horse, and it should have been interpreted as a green horse in Revelation. For the sake of the way it's translated, it'll suffice to say it's a pale green horse. It's described as the grizzled and bay in Zechariah, which means spotted and of a strong color. I visualize this as a green horse with red spots. And it's important to remember that the grizzled and bay is a single chariot in Zechariah. So those who interpret this as being separate horses are incorrect. In Zechariah 6, we see that there are red horses, black horses, white horses, and the grizzled and bay horses, which are pulling 4 chariots. And we see that these 4 sets of horses and chariots represent 4 spirits, which are in the world. These spirits, the scriptures say, go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth, and they go into the world. We're going to talk about each one of those sets of horses. So we can see that there's a green horse, a black horse, a red horse, and a white horse. And likewise, in Zechariah, we have the white, red, black, and spotted horses. When we combine the 2 scriptures from Revelation and Zechariah, we get a much more detailed picture. There are 4 spirits which govern the thinking, worldview, cultural, and societal ways of life. They do certain things or carry certain things and go certain ways in the world, as you'll see. So I'm going to start with the black horse. The color black represents capitalism in political and news circles in the world. In the black means you're profitable in business. It's a term to represent that you're doing well money-wise, that financially you're doing well in your business. You're profitable. And the black horse fits capitalism really well when you look at everything that's said about the horse in both Revelation and Zechariah. Now it says in Zechariah that the black horses go north, they go forth into the north country. And when you look at capitalistic nations, if you look at the map here, you can see that North America and Europe is where capitalism is represented in the world. The central area of prophecy from the scriptures is this area around the Mediterranean Sea. You've got some in the south as well, but you can see that the majority is in the north, and this is the focus area. The black horse rider has a pair of balances in his hand, saying a measure of wheat for a penny, etc. Don't hurt the oil or the wine. It's talking about trade, making money, buying and selling for profit. Don't hurt the stuff that makes us money. A lot of people don't know this, but there's a pair of balances on a US dollar bill, and not just the dollar bill, but most of the denominations of the United States printed money have a pair of balances in the Treasury seal. It represents justice, but US currency represents global free trade and capitalism. In fact, US currency is the global currency used for trade between countries. The US dollar is the money that the International Monetary Fund uses, the IMF. It's the global currency that the world uses, the United Nations and everyone else. Here's a $100 bill where you can see the pair of balances. So you can see the things shown to us about the black horse fit capitalism very well. In the North Country, the financial aspect of it, free trade, buying and selling for profit, is the basis for capitalism. It's not a bad thing, but it promotes greed. And many people do everything they can to work the system for gain, while not caring who is hurt in the process. It all fits very well with the black horse in both prophecies. So now let's move on to the white horse. The white horse went forth after the black in Zechariah. Now this is a map of where Catholics live in the world. And you can see that same representation in North America and Europe, where capitalism is. It is also very highly Catholic. So we can see that the white horse truly follows after the black. And if you compare these two maps, you can see what I'm talking about, where it's very much where the black horse went. The white horse is following right along. Wherever a nation turns capitalistic, the Vatican follows in behind. Now the white horse rider has a bow and a crown, and it went forth to conquer. The Pope wears a crown. The Pope rides in a white limo. He wears white. He has a white helicopter. Everything about Catholicism is white, and the Catholic Church promotes itself as a symbol of peace. White is the symbol of peace in the world, and the Catholic Church says that she brings a message of peace. That's what they present to the world. They are bringing about peace according to what they say. If you believe this is true, then you should know the real agenda behind the Vatican. And take a look at my videos on modern-day biblical prophecy connections. I have a playlist on all my channels for these videos. Now, if the Pope were to ride a horse, what color would it be? It would be a white horse. I mean, everything that he wears and rides in is white. And it says that the rider has a bow. And while the Vatican has no standing army, Catholicism is certainly a conquering power. Whenever a majority of the people of a nation become Catholic, the Catholic Church believes that she has the right to make political decisions for that nation. So again, the black horse very, very well represents capitalism in the world. And the white horse very well represents Catholicism in the world, both in Zechariah and the description in Revelation for both of those. So let's look at the red horse now. The color red is the universal color for communism in the world. It says that this horse in Revelation will take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another, and he is given a great sword. There's no description of the red horse in Zechariah on where it goes. It's not mentioned in that part of the prophecy, but it's just shown as a red horse. We know that communism is largely in Russia and China. Do communists kill one another? Do they take peace from the earth? It's estimated that over 80,000 Chinese have been killed in political purges in China since the communists took over after World War II. And the government of the USSR killed at least 67,000 of its own people over the years. And Russia and China are both socialist, communist nations. A lot of people like to separate those terms as if they have vastly different meanings, saying socialism is not communism. But if you were to read the Communist Manifesto, you would see that it talks about socialism all through it. It's those who are brainwashing us that want us to think socialism is okay, while communism is known to be a very bad thing for anyone who is not an elite. You can take certain aspects of communism and point at socialism and say that it's different, but it really is the same thing at the core. So the red horse, do they kill one another? Definitely. Do they take peace from the earth? Russia and China are the biggest threats in the world right now, as far as whether or not we can all have peace or not. It's the United States that's the deterring power in that whole situation. And if it weren't for the United States, either Russia or China would have probably already taken over the world in this day and age. So does he have a great sword to take peace from the world? Definitely. So now I'm going to talk about the green horse, which is by far my favorite, because it really paints a picture of what's going on in the world with Islam. The green-spotted horses went south, and death sat on him, and hell followed him. He was given the power to kill with the sword and hunger and beasts of the world. And power was given unto them over a fourth part of the earth, and the black horses in the north quieted the spirit of the green horses in the north country, where the black horses went. The color of Islam is green. It was Muhammad's favorite color, and so Muslims try to be like Muhammad in everything they do. They emulate his behavior. They like the color that he liked, and so they make many things green. They have green lights. They have green flags, green headbands. They paint the domes of their mosques green, etc., etc. They wear green because it was Muhammad's favorite color. So green fits in more than one way for this green horse. And the green horse went south. If you look at where Islam is predominantly in Southern Asia and in Africa, it's definitely south, where Islam is predominant in the world. And if you look at that same map that I showed you where capitalism is in the north, remember that the black horses quieted the spirit of the green horse in the north country where the black horses are. And if you look at this map, you can see how it really shows that where the black horse is, where capitalism is, Islam is at its lowest percentage of population, its lowest strength. And where the black horse does not exist is where Islam is the strongest. And then the green horse also had the power to kill with the sword and with hunger. Where we see that Islam is south, we also see that hunger is south, predominantly in Africa and India. And that's where many starving people exist in the world. And it's predominantly where Islam is the strongest. And then we see that death sat on him and hell followed him. If you know anything about the history of Islam, you know that since Muhammad, and ever since then, for the last 1400 years, it's always been about violence and death, and jihad has been around since the days of Muhammad. Shortly after his death, when they were fighting for control in the two factions of Islam, the Shiites and the Sunnis, they have been fighting over control of Islam and to establish the caliphate for the last 1400 years. It's been going on violently ever since then. Islam is not of God. Even though they claim that they worship the God of Abraham, we know that they don't. And my webpage and video on Islam in the Bible shows you exactly why that is. And I encourage you to watch my video, which can be found on my website page, Islam in the Bible. So since Islam is not of God, hell most certainly follows. So this may be referring to the second death that's mentioned in Revelation 20:14, where it means everlasting death. So that would be why death sat on him and hell follows. The green horse was also given power over a fourth part of the earth. Now Islam is growing by leaps and bounds today. The population of Islam grew from 148 billion in 2008 to 1.8 billion in 2015. And I would bet that today in 2024 that Islam is actually 25% of the world. They're converting people as they become stronger through the immigration being forced on the Western nations around the world. In Europe today, we're seeing how this influx of Muslims is causing lots of violent problems in Europe, and that a lot of Europeans have converted, most likely to save their own life and not try to resist because they are in fear for their life. So they're just doing what they have to do to survive. And so this green horse was given power over a fourth part of the earth, which matches Islam exactly today. So the four horsemen and horses with chariots most likely represent the spirit of Catholicism, capitalism, communism, and Islam. We can see that those spirits have been in the world for a long time. And like I said in the beginning, if you think about it, if you think about the people that live underneath these spiritual umbrellas, so to speak, have a different mindset or worldview. The way they think, the way they live their lives, and their societies are completely different and governed by those spirits. So Catholicism has been around since the 4th century, capitalism since around 16th, communism around the 19th century, and Islam was born in the 7th century. So we can see that during the last 1700 years, these spirits have been growing and dominating peoples. And they don't necessarily show up in the world in the same order that John saw the seals broken. We can pretty much assume that the seals weren't necessarily broken at far apart times, right? Where one was 100s of years after another one, and so on. It's safe to assume that the first 4 seals were broken fairly soon after each other, and that these 4 spirits have all been in the world for nearly 2,000 years. It's just that some of them dominated more quickly than others. And so we see them in the world, predominant at different times, even though all of the spirits have been working in the world for a long time. It doesn't necessarily mean that for sure, but it certainly fits, and the scriptures do not prove differently. And if you've seen the big picture or prophecy explained videos where I show all the different images of the beasts from Daniel 7 and how they're combined in Revelation 13 and how it's used in Revelation 17 by the Bible's great whore, and how they all combine to make the false prophet and the Antichrist power base in the last days, you can see how the Four Horsemen of Revelation and the four spirits of Zechariah that are in the world fit with that image that God painted. We can see that capitalism is represented by the European nations and Islam by the 10-horned beast, which is going to be the power base of the Antichrist, the 10 kings that will give him power. And he's going to align himself with these European nations, as well as communism, which is the bear, the Russian bear. And I have an article on my webpage called Modern Nations in the Bible, and I welcome you to go read that. That's represented in the pictures God painted for us there with Daniel 7's beast. So the seven-headed, 10-horned beast that we see in Revelation 13 and Revelation 17 is the combined beasts of Daniel 7, and we can see the great whore, Catholicism, riding on the back of this beast, where the false prophet aligns with the Antichrist, and they create this new world order and a one-world religion, which is what the Antichrist and the false prophet are going to do. So let's take a quick look at the remaining seals. The fifth seal is the saints of God that are already passed away, are given white robes, and told to rest yet for a little season. The sixth seal, as we see here in this chart, is the same event as the seventh trumpet, the seventh vial, and Matthew 24, which is immediately after the tribulation, and the battle of Ezekiel 38, which is the same as the battle of Armageddon at the end of the vials, which are the wrath of God. I'm putting these 5 scriptures together because it gives us such a good understanding of how they're all the same event. And I've done a video series on understanding Revelation, so please take a look at that. I have an article on my website where you can watch the videos or read the article that goes through Revelation chapter by chapter and verse by verse. Website: BibleProphecyAndTruth.com. Or you can browse my playlists on my channels where I have the Understanding Revelation series of videos. And then the very last event is the seventh seal, where there's silence in heaven for about the space of half an hour. This, I imagine, is the entirety of heaven and earth are in awe of what God has just concluded. The Battle of Armageddon is done. Jesus has finished his descent, wiped out the armies coming against Israel, and then God says, "It is done." And that's when the seventh seal is broken and there's silence in heaven for about the space of half an hour because it's done. Wow. God's plan has reached his culmination, and it's done. And he's going to begin that final day, that final 1,000-year reign, and then begin eternity with us at the end of that. Praise the Lord.
For more information, go to BibleProphecyAndTruth.com. If you're watching from YouTube or Facebook, you might not see a link in the description because I'm being punished for speaking truth and they've blocked my ability to add links. The censorship of YouTube, Google, Facebook, and virtually all big tech is an attempt to silence anyone who goes against the narrative of the woke and the agenda of the secret society, sometimes called the deep state and other names. They will shut down all who speak the truth sooner than later, so you will want to leave those platforms and move to platforms that allow free speech, like Rumble. Go to rumble.com/BibleProphecy and follow my channel there because they will cancel me on YouTube very soon, I'm sure. See you there.